and I recognize myself for 5 minutes for an opening statement. Welcome, Secretary Becerra. I appreciate you keeping your word and appearing before this subcommittee related to the Office of Refugee Resettlement, or ORR. ORR is an agency of the Department of Health and Human Services and is responsible for the care and placement of unaccompanied children referred to it by the Border Patrol. Under the Biden administration, ORR has faced an unprecedented surge in the number of unaccompanied minors referred to its custody. The numbers of unaccompanied minors crossing our border is astronomically high. From fiscal years 2018 through 2020, ORR averaged around 44,500 referrals per year. As of March 31st, 2023, which is the last time ORR made their numbers public, the agency had received almost 60,000 referrals in fiscal year 2023, putting the agency on pace for over 120,000 referrals for the third year in a row. Now, you and I don't agree on the policies that brought these children to our border, but I believe no matter the policies, once they are in our care and we have taken on the responsibility for them, we must care for them properly. Today's hearing is to take stock of how HHS and ORR have responded to the surge of these children. When thousands of vulnerable children were in ORR custody by an agency under your leadership, what was the message you sent to the frontline workers managing the border crisis? Hopefully, it was to make sure that these children are placed in safe environments with people they are actually related to. Hopefully also was to make sure that state and local child welfare agencies were aware that vulnerable children were being placed in their jurisdictions and would likely need services. But no matter the message you intended to send, it does appear that children's welfare was not a primary concern. Thanks to the whistleblower and a New York Times reporting, we know that there was constant neglect when handling the intake and release of these children. According to a recording obtained by the New York Times regarding ORR's unaccompanied minors, which I will submit for the record, you stated, if Henry Ford had seen this in his plants, he would have never become famous and rich. This is not the way you do an assembly line, end quote. Is that statement consistent with how you've intended to run ORR's unaccompanied children's program? While I hope not, the overriding priority seems to have been moving children out of ORR facilities as quickly as possible and not protecting them. That would explain why you would have approved policies like ORR Field Guidance 10, which expedites release of minors to people claiming to be family members, while simultaneously waiving background checks to ensure the potential sponsor is in fact a family member. It would also explain your approval of ORR Field Guidance 11, which waives background check requirements for unrelated adults who live in the same residence a minor is being sent to. This is of great concern, and I have been vocal about the failure of ORR to provide bona fide background checks. In 2021, I visited the emergency intake operation at Fort Bliss, Texas. I was shocked with what I learned there. There was no collaboration with law enforcement for real background checks when vetting sponsors, and the, quote, public records check, end quote, that they were using was merely a widely available internet search engine. My suspicions were solidified by a September 2022 OIG report on Fort Bliss. Under your leadership, ORR has issued requests for proposals and contracts worth billions of dollars for what seem to be large permanent influx care facilities designed to quickly process hundreds of minors. My fear is that no matter what your intentions may be, you may be putting ORR on a permanent assembly line footing where child welfare simply is not a priority. As I close, I'd like to enter into the record a report by a statewide grand jury in Florida charged with investigating ORR. This report, Mr. Secretary, is damning. It details chapter and verse how ORR's policies and practices have resulted in child exploitation and trafficking. I'll end by quoting the grand jury's assessment. If any resident of Florida exposed quote, if any resident of Florida exposed U.S.-born children to this process, they would be justifiably arrested for child neglect or worse. We do not think children should be less protected simply because they were born outside our borders and brought here by a government agency. I've been saying that for years. As a former domestic relations lawyer in Virginia, the same related to the legal standard would be true in Virginia as well. OR actions are equal to neglect. The child's legal status in this country is irrelevant, and OR must do better. I yield back.